Admiral Zaxthara pressed her six-clawed digits against the crystalline command interface of the hegemony flagship Eternal Dominion. The massive vessel, stretching over 3 kilometers in length, hummed with the power of 1,000 fusion cores. Around her, the bridge bustled with activity as dozens of alien species worked in perfect coordination, the result of 2 centuries of galactic hegemony rule. Through the massive viewport, she could see the rest of her armada. 200 warships of various classes, from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, all bearing the crimson and gold insignia of the hegemony. This was the largest military force assembled in the past 50 years, and it had one simple mission: investigate and eliminate the source of the mysterious transmissions coming from the outer rim world designated as Sol 3. Admiral, called out Communications Officer Veltar, his insectoid features clicking nervously. We're receiving the automated warning beacon from the target system again. The message is unusual. ZYXThara's reptilian eyes narrowed. Display it. The main screen flickered, and a simple text message appeared in basic galactic standard. Warning. This system is under the protection of the Terran Defense Force. Any hostile action will be met with appropriate response. Turn back now. A chorus of clicks, chirps, and guttural laughter erupted from the bridge crew. The idea that some primitive species from an uncharted world would dare threaten the mighty hegemony was absurd. The hegemony had conquered over 10,000 worlds, subjugated hundreds of species, and ruled the galaxy for 2 centuries without serious challenge. Terran Defense Force? Senior Tactical Officer Krina scoffed, her blue-scaled hide rippling with amusement. Our intelligence reports show this species only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They barely have a dozen colonies outside their home system. ZYXThara nodded grimly. Indeed. And yet, 3 of our exploration fleets have failed to return from this sector. The last transmission we received showed their ships being destroyed by unknown weapons technology. The bridge fell silent. The loss of 3 exploration fleets was no small matter. Each contained 30 ships and thousands of crew members from across the hegemony's member species. Perhaps they encountered some kind of natural phenomenon, suggested Science Officer Mordak, his tentacles writhing nervously around his control console. Gravitational anomalies, subspace storms. No, ZYXThara interrupted. The energy signatures we detected were artificial. Directed. These humans, as they call themselves, possess some kind of advanced weaponry. That's why we're here in force. She turned to address the entire bridge crew. This mission is about more than conquest. It's about maintaining the natural order of the galaxy. No species should possess technology that threatens hegemony supremacy. We will investigate these humans, assess their capabilities, and either integrate them into our empire or eliminate them entirely. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system with the familiar flash of exotic radiation that marked faster-than-light transitions. Immediately, sensor arrays across the Armada began scanning for threats, cataloging the unusual yellow star and its collection of planets. Interesting, Mordak reported, studying the incoming data. This star system is remarkably stable. Perfect conditions for supporting carbon-based life. The third planet shows clear signs of heavy industrialization and a massive population, perhaps 8 to 10 billion individuals. Any sign of their military forces? ZYXThara demanded. Scanning now, Admiral. I'm detecting numerous orbital installations around the primary world, as well as several smaller outposts throughout the system. There are also... He paused, his tentacles curling in confusion. This is strange. I'm reading massive energy signatures from several objects, but they don't match any known ship configurations in our database. Elaborate. The power outputs are enormous, far beyond what should be possible for such a young civilization. One signature in particular is off the charts. It's roughly the size of a small moon, but it's clearly artificial and mobile. Before ZYXThara could respond, the communications console erupted with activity. Veltar's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed incoming transmissions. Admiral, we're being hailed on multiple frequencies. The message is coming from everywhere. Every ship, every station, even what appears to be civilian vessels throughout the system. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, measured, and spoke in flawless galactic standard. Unknown fleet. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Force. You have entered human space with a military force of significant size. State your intentions immediately. ZYX Thera activated the reply circuit. I am Admiral ZYX Thera of the Galactic Hegemony. Your species has been designated for assessment and potential integration into our empire. You will stand down all military forces and prepare for inspection. There was a long pause before the human responded. I see. And if we refuse? Then, you will be eliminated as a threat to galactic stability. Another pause. Then, to ZYX Thera's surprise, she heard what sounded like laughter. Admiral ZYX Thera, with respect, you and your fleet are outgunned, outnumbered, and completely outmatched. I'm going to give you one chance to withdraw peacefully. After that, well, we'll show you why 3 of your fleets never made it home. The communication cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. The audacity of this human was beyond comprehension. Did they truly believe their primitive technology could stand against the combined might of the hegemony's finest warships? Admiral, Krina's voice carried a note of confusion. Tactical sensors are detecting massive movement throughout the system. Objects are uncloaking. The main display updated, and ZYX Thera felt her blood run cold. What had appeared to be empty space moments before now showed dozens, no, hundreds, of massive metallic structures. Ships unlike anything in the hegemony database, each one bristling with weapon arrays and energy signatures that made her most powerful dreadnoughts look like small patrol craft. How many? She whispered. Still counting, Admiral. Current tally is 400 and rising. They're continuing to decloak throughout the system. But it was the massive object that Mordak had detected earlier that truly made ZYX Thera's blood freeze in her veins. As it fully materialized on their screens, she realized they were looking at something that defied every assumption about human capabilities. The ship, if it could even be called a ship, was nearly 20 kilometers long. Its hull was a dark gray metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Along its length, massive weapon ports gaped like the mouths of hungry beasts, each one large enough to swallow a hegemony destroyer whole. Energy readings from the vessel were so intense that several sensor arrays overloaded trying to process the data. By the ancient gods, Mordak breathed. That single vessel is outputting more power than our entire fleet combined. The communications console crackled to life once more. Admiral ZYX Thera, allow me to introduce you to the TDF Retribution, humanity's first Titan-class battleship. Behind her are the Vengeance, Defiance, and Unbreakable. Each one is capable of sterilizing a planet's surface in under an hour. Now, I believe I offered you a chance to withdraw. ZYX Thera stared at the impossible sight before her. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 2 centuries through superior technology and overwhelming force. They had never encountered a species that could challenge their dominance so completely. The humans had somehow developed weapons technology decades ahead of anything in the hegemony arsenal, and they had done it in secret. How? She managed to ask. How do we build them? Simple, Admiral. While your hegemony grew fat and complacent ruling over conquered species, humanity faced extinction. We had to evolve, adapt, or die. We chose evolution. The tactical display continued to update as more human vessels revealed themselves. Fighters, bombers, support craft, an entire fleet that had been hidden in plain sight using stealth technology that the hegemony couldn't even detect. Admiral, Krina's voice was barely above a whisper. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Our weapons won't even scratch the armor on those Titan-class vessels. ZYX Thera's mind raced. She had 2 choices, admit defeat and flee, or fight, and likely lose her entire fleet. The hegemony had never retreated from an inferior species. But then, again, the hegemony had never faced anything like this. As she watched, the massive human battleships began to move into attack formation, their weapon arrays charging with an ominous red glow. In that moment, Admiral ZYX Thera realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. Hashtag the first glimpse of a human warship stunned an alien armada. Admiral ZYX Thera's tactical training warred with her survival instincts as she watched the human fleet take position. The retribution alone dwarfed her flagship, and the energy readings coming from its weapon arrays suggested firepower that could crack a moon in half. But retreat would mean admitting that the mighty hegemony could be intimidated by an unknown species. Such a precedent could shatter the empire that had ruled the galaxy for 2 centuries. Admiral Chun, Zhuangxia transmitted, her voice carefully controlled. You speak of evolution, but the galactic hegemony has evolved as well. We have conquered 10,000 worlds and integrated hundreds of species into our glorious empire. Your isolation has left you ignorant of galactic politics. Join us willingly, and your species will be granted a place of honor among our member worlds. The response came swiftly, and Zhuangxia could hear the steel in the human admiral's voice. Admiral, you seem to misunderstand our position. This isn't a negotiation. You have entered our space with hostile intent, and 3 of your fleets have already attacked our colonies. We have no interest in joining your empire, and we have every intention of ensuring you never threaten human space again. Our previous fleets were merely conducting reconnaissance. Zhuangxia protested. Reconnaissance with plasma bombardments against civilian colonies? Admiral Chen's voice carried a cold anger that made several bridge officers step back from their stations. We have the wreckage of your ships, Admiral. We've analyzed your weapons. We know exactly what your reconnaissance missions were intended to accomplish. The main tactical display updated with new information that made Zhuangxia's heart skip a beat. The human ships weren't just positioning defensively. They were surrounding her entire fleet in a complex 3-dimensional formation that would make escape impossible. Admiral, Krina reported, her blue scales now pale with fear. They've deployed some kind of interdiction field. Our hyperspace drives are being jammed. We cannot retreat. On the screen, Admiral Chen's image appeared for the first time. She was smaller than most hegemony species, with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that seemed to hold the cold depth of space itself. Despite her relatively small stature, there was something about her presence that commanded respect. Let me tell you a story, Admiral Zhuangxia, Chen began, settling back in her command chair. 50 years ago, when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, we were excited to meet other intelligent species. We imagined trade, cultural exchange, shared scientific advancement. We were naive. Behind her, Zhuangxia could see the bridge of the human flagship. Unlike the ornate, species-specific designs common throughout the hegemony, the human bridge was stark, efficient, and obviously designed for war. Every surface was covered with displays showing tactical information, and the crew moved with the precision of soldiers who had seen battle. Our first contact was with one of your exploration fleets, Chun continued. They demanded we surrender our sovereignty and join your empire. When our representatives asked for time to consider, your ships opened fire on our colony of New Geneva. 50,000 civilians died in the first bombardment. Zhuangxia felt a chill run down her spine. She remembered reading reports about a minor resistance incident in this sector decades ago, but it had been classified as a standard pacification operation against a primitive species. We tried diplomacy after that, Chen said, and now her voice carried the weight of old pain. We sent envoys to your capital worlds, attempted to establish formal relations. Your government's response was to declare humanity a rogue species and authorize unlimited military action against our colonies. 7 of our worlds were sterilized before we realized that peace was never an option. The tactical display showed the human fleet continuing to tighten its formation around the hegemony Armada. What had initially looked like a defensive posture was clearly something far more sophisticated, a perfect encirclement that would allow the human ships to concentrate their fire while preventing any possibility of escape. So we evolved, Chen said simply. We studied your technology, learned from the wreckage of every ship you sent against us. We discovered that the hegemony's greatest weakness was arrogance. You never imagined that a species you considered primitive could develop countermeasures to your weapons. On cue, the Retribution's main battery began to rotate, tracking the hegemony flagship with mechanical precision. The weapon array was larger than most hegemony destroyers, and energy readings indicated it was charging to full power. Your plasma weapons are impressive against species that haven't encountered them before, Chen explained. almost conversationally. But we've developed adaptive shielding that can absorb and redirect plasma energy. Your missiles rely on predictable targeting algorithms that our point defense systems can counter with 99% efficiency. And your armor, while thick, wasn't designed to withstand the kinetic impact of projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Mordak's tentacles writhed frantically over his console as he analyzed the human ship's weapons. "Admiral," he reported in a shaking voice, "they're using some kind of magnetic acceleration system to fire solid projectiles. The velocities are incredible. A single hit would punch through our heaviest armor like it was paper." "That's not all," Chen added, apparently monitoring the hegemony's communications. "We've also developed something your empire has never had to face. Artificial intelligence that can coordinate fleet actions faster than any biological crew. Every ship in this system is linked through a quantum communication network that allows for real-time tactical coordination across impossible distances." As if to demonstrate, the entire human fleet moved in perfect synchronization. Hundreds of ships shifted positions simultaneously, their movements so precisely coordinated that they looked like a single organism rather than individual vessels. "The question now, Admiral ZYX-Thara, is what happens next," Chen said. "You have 200 ships and roughly 500,000 crew members from various hegemony species. I have no desire to see them die unnecessarily. But I also cannot allow you to return to your empire with intelligence about human defensive capabilities." ZYX-Thara's mind raced through her options. Surrender would mean the end of her career and possibly her life. The hegemony did not tolerate failure from its military commanders. But fighting seemed like suicide. The human ships not only outnumbered her fleet, but their technology appeared to be generations ahead of anything the hegemony possessed. "What are you proposing?" she asked. "Simple. Your ships will be impounded, and your crews will be held as guests until this conflict is resolved. In the meantime, you will serve as an envoy to the hegemony leadership. You will carry our terms for ending this war. And if I refuse?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Then, you and your entire fleet will join the other ships we've destroyed in defense of human space. The choice is yours, Admiral." On the tactical display, ZYX-Thara could see that several of the smaller human vessels had moved into position directly above and below her fleet. Their weapons were trained on the hegemony ship's engines and weapons arrays, a clear message that resistance would be met with precision strikes designed to disable rather than destroy. "Your terms," ZYX-Thara said finally. "The hegemony will withdraw all forces from human space and recognize our territorial sovereignty. In return, we will not expand beyond our current borders or interfere with hegemony operations in other sectors. A simple non-aggression pact. The Hegemony Council will never agree to such terms. No species has ever successfully resisted integration." "Then, the Hegemony Council is about to learn something new," Chen replied. "You see, Admiral, humanity has spent the last 50 years preparing for this moment. We've studied every aspect of your empire, its politics, its economy, its military structure. We know about the resistance movements on dozens of conquered worlds, the species that joined your empire only under threat of annihilation." The implications hit ZYX-Thara like a physical blow. If the humans could provide military support to resistance movements throughout the hegemony, "You're threatening to arm rebel groups," she said. "I'm pointing out that your empire isn't as stable as your leaders believe. Oppression breeds resentment, Admiral. All those conquered species are still there, still remembering their freedom, still hoping for liberation. The only thing that's been missing is hope." Chen leaned forward in her chair. "Humanity represents that hope. Word of today's events will spread throughout the galaxy. Every species under hegemony rule will learn that resistance is possible, that the empire can be challenged and defeated. The question is whether your leaders are wise enough to accept a peaceful resolution, or whether they'll force us to demonstrate our capabilities on a larger scale." Around them, the human fleet maintained its perfect formation, a demonstration of technological superiority and tactical coordination that made the hegemony's finest warships look primitive by comparison. ZYX-Thara realized that she was witnessing the end of an era, the end of unquestioned hegemony dominance in the galaxy. The age of human defiance had begun. Hashtag the first glimpse of a human warship stunned an alien armada 3 days later. Admiral Zoyaxthara found herself in the most unusual position of her military career, sitting in the observation deck of a human space station, sipping something the humans called coffee, and watching her own fleet under guard by vessels that could destroy them without effort. The beverage was bitter and stimulating, nothing like the refined nectars preferred by hegemony nobility, but she had developed an unexpected appreciation for its harsh honesty. Admiral Chen sat across from her, reviewing data tablets containing detailed intelligence reports about the hegemony's military structure. The human commander had spent the past 3 days systematically demonstrating just how thoroughly her people had penetrated hegemony security systems, revealing knowledge of fleet movements, political machinations, and strategic resources that should have been impossible for an isolated species to obtain. Your spy networks are impressive, Ziwaxthara admitted, watching a squad of human fighters conduct training exercises outside the viewport. Even their smallest ships moved with a precision and speed that outclassed the hegemony's elite pilots. We prefer the term intelligence gathering, Chen replied without looking up from her tablet. When you're facing an enemy with overwhelming numerical superiority, information becomes your most valuable weapon. We've had agents embedded throughout your empire for decades. Impossible. Hegemony security protocols would detect any non-native species attempting infiltration. Chen smiled, the first genuine expression of amusement Ziwaxthara had seen from her. Admiral, you're thinking too literally. We didn't send human agents. We sent ideas, information, support to existing resistance movements. Every species you've conquered still has members who remember freedom, who pass down stories of their homeworld's independence. They just needed coordination and hope. She activated a holographic display showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Dozens of star systems pulsed with red warning lights throughout hegemony space. Active resistance cells in 47 systems, Chen explained. Each one has been quietly building strength for years, waiting for a sign that the hegemony could be challenged. Your failed fleets provided that sign. As we speak, uprisings are beginning on 12 different worlds. Ziwaxthara stared at the display in growing horror. If even half of those resistance movements succeeded in creating significant disruptions, the hegemony would face the largest internal security crisis in its history. This is terrorism, she said. This is liberation, Chen corrected. Every species has the right to self-determination. The hegemony built its empire through conquest and intimidation. We're simply providing alternatives. Through the viewport, the massive bulk of the retribution dominated the view. Even at rest, the Titan-class battleship radiated menace. Weapon arrays that could level continents remained powered but passive, a constant reminder of humanity's newfound ability to project force on a galactic scale. Tell me about the ship, Ziwaxthara said. How did you develop such technology in relative isolation? Chen followed her gaze to the battleship. Necessity. When the hegemony declared us a rogue species, we realized conventional military thinking wouldn't save us. So we threw out conventional thinking entirely. She stood and moved to the viewport, placing one hand against the transparent aluminum. The Retribution isn't just a warship, it's a mobile industrial platform. Those weapon arrays you see, they can be reconfigured as mining lasers, construction tools, or fabrication systems. The ship can literally build more ships while in deep space, using raw materials harvested from asteroids or dead worlds. Self-replicating military technology, Ziwaxthara breathed. The implications are staggering, yes. One Titan-class ship can establish a complete military-industrial complex in any star system within months. We currently have 4 operational, with 6 more under construction in hidden shipyards throughout human space. The coffee cup in Ziwaxthara's hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. The hegemony's military doctrine was based on controlling key industrial worlds and supply lines. If humanity could establish military production anywhere, traditional strategic planning became meaningless. But the resources required, she started, are less than you'd think when you're not maintaining a galaxy-spanning bureaucracy, Chen interrupted. The hegemony spends enormous resources on administration, cultural suppression, and maintaining control over unwilling populations. We spend our resources on research, development, and building things that actually matter. Chun activated another display, showing comparative resource allocation charts between human colonies and hegemony worlds. The efficiency differences were stark. While hegemony planets devoted 30 to 40% of their output to maintaining imperial administration, human worlds operated with overhead costs below 5%. Efficient resource utilization, motivated populations, and a clear understanding of strategic objectives, Chen summarized. It turns out that free societies are remarkably good at defending themselves when properly organized. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. Chun accepted the call, and the holographic image of another human officer appeared, younger than Chun, with the intense focus of someone bearing urgent news. Admiral, we've received responses from the Hegemony Council regarding Admiral Zoextera's message, the officer reported. And they've rejected our terms and authorized a full military response. Fleet Admiral Torvek is assembling the Grand Armada. Over 2,000 ships, including 6 super dreadnoughts. They're planning to sterilize human space entirely. Zoextera felt her blood freeze. The Grand Armada was the hegemony's ultimate military force, reserved for threats to the Empire's very existence. 2,000 ships represented nearly a quarter of the hegemony's total military strength. Expected time of arrival? Chen asked, her voice betraying no emotion. 18 days, Admiral. Thank you, Commander. Initiate Protocol 7 and begin Phase 2 operations. The transmission ended, leaving Zoextera staring at Chun in amazement. The human commander had just received news of the largest military force in galactic history bearing down on her people, and she seemed almost pleased. You're not concerned about facing the Grand Armada? Zoextera asked. Concerned? Admiral, your leaders have just given us exactly what we wanted, a concentrated target containing a significant portion of your military strength in a single location. It's every strategist's dream scenario. Chen returned to the display showing resistance movements throughout the galaxy. While your Grand Armada spends 3 weeks traveling here, 47 star systems will experience coordinated uprisings. Your supply lines will be severed, your communication networks disrupted, and your political structure destabilized. By the time Fleet Admiral Torvek arrives, the hegemony he's trying to protect will already be falling apart. You planned this, Zoextera realized. The message I carried, you knew they would reject your terms. Of course, the Hegemony Council is predictably arrogant. They've never faced a real challenge to their authority, so they can't conceive of actually losing. That blindness is their greatest weakness. Chun pulled up tactical projections showing the likely composition and approach vectors for the Grand Armada. Torvek is an excellent traditional commander, but he's thinking in terms of conventional fleet engagements. Massive ships, overwhelming firepower, decisive battles. He doesn't understand asymmetric warfare. And you do? Admiral, humanity spent most of its history fighting itself. We've mastered every form of warfare imaginable, conventional, guerrilla, economic, information, psychological. The hegemony has only ever fought technologically inferior opponents. This will be a very different kind of war. Outside the viewport, human vessels continued their patrol patterns around the captured hegemony fleet. But now Zoextera noticed something she had missed before. Many of the ships were drones, operating without crews. Artificial intelligences that could think and react faster than any biological pilot, coordinating through quantum communication networks that made real-time tactical adjustments across entire star systems. What happens to my people? She asked. My crews have served honorably. They don't deserve to die because of their leader's arrogance. They won't, Chen assured her. When this war ends, and it will end with humanity victorious, every species currently under hegemony rule will have a choice. Join the new galactic community we're building, based on voluntary cooperation and mutual respect, or continue supporting the old system and face the consequences. And the hegemony leadership? Chen's expression hardened. Will face judgment for 2 centuries of oppression, genocide, and the systematic destruction of dozens of civilizations. Justice, Admiral. Something your empire has avoided for far too long. As if summoned by their conversation, the tactical display updated with new information. Red indicators throughout hegemony space were multiplying as resistance movements launched coordinated strikes against military installations, communication hubs, and administrative centers. "It's beginning," Chen said quietly. "The liberation of the galaxy." Admiral Zhuangthirao watched the display with mixed emotions. She had spent her entire career serving an empire she believed brought order to a chaotic galaxy. Now she was witnessing its systematic dismantlement by a species that had been dismissed as primitive barely 3 days ago. But, as she watched those red indicators spread across the galactic map, each one representing a world choosing freedom over oppression, she found herself wondering if perhaps the humans were right. Perhaps the galaxy's greatest period of peace and prosperity lay ahead, not behind. The age of the galactic hegemony was ending. The age of human-led liberation had begun,